The Morning Watch today is brought to you by Home and Things, your construction finishes superstore.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch. Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you are overseas and on the move, US listeners can access us at 7128328001. And if you are in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. And of course, you can also join us live on Love 101 FM, YouTube, and Facebook Live. In the main watch today, the US, Pentagon, and UFOs. And in second watch, will there be a future where commercial planes are flown without pilots? For our Facebook question, we ask, which would you be more comfortable with? There really being extraterrestrial life, or you flying in a pilotless plane? Share your responses on our Facebook or YouTube, Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, or WhatsApp comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but first, here's our quote.
This morning's side quote: "Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant." Robert Louis Stevenson.
Well, the Siobhan, that I quote sounds quite interesting and maybe even encouraging. The main watch will be back after this break.
The Students' Loan Bureau turns 50 and it's a golden celebration. Over the years, we've transformed dreams, accelerated change, and contributed to our nation's development.
With SLB, I was able to finance my future, and now my daughter can chase her own dreams.
The Students' Loan Bureau has been part of so many success stories, and we are proud to spend the next 50 years promoting equal access to brighter futures. Thank you, Jamaica, for entrusting us with your dreams and for 50 stellar years.
I always do my best to stay in control of my expenses. So with Flow, I added my mobile to my home internet service and elevated my savings. I get 50% off my mobile plan each month. Yeah man, I get a simple, predictable mobile bill of $1,600 plus GCT and never sign a contract nor made a deposit. And you can get this too. Add your mobile to your Flow home internet for elevated savings of 50% off your mobile plan each month. Visit the Flow store or discoverflow.co to sign up today.
Hello, today we're going to be making breakfast and preparing a lunchbox for school. Let's start with some sugar and salt and wash it down with a nice big glass of more sugar. And now for the lunchbox. Let's put in saturated fat, more salt, and sugar. Foods high in salt, fats, and sugar increase the risk of hypertension, obesity, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. Now more than ever, we have the right to know what's in our food. Give us warning labels on the front of our food packages.
A message from the Heart Foundation of Jamaica, Ministry of Health and Wellness, and partners.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. Now, we are in the main watch, the first watch. Now, motion pictures and numerous books, well, over time that we have seen, read, we realize that our imaginations can really take us places, and one of those various types of imaginations, or so we may have thought or said, is that of the world of extraterrestrial life, life outside of this earth. Now, is there really life outside of this earth? Some are saying yes, and some have doubts about that. Now, there have been claims from ever since, perhaps, that there is life outside of what we have here on Earth. And in more recent decades prior to the current age we are in, there have been movies and there has been talk that there is life outside of planet Earth. Now, this seems to have taken on a certain kind of traction recently, where even the US Pentagon is now speaking about having had sightings of certain type of can I say vehicles vehicles in the air, or signs that there is indeed life out of well, certainly not of this world. And they have indicated that they've had certain sightings of what they're describing as UFOs. So this is now definitely mainstream, we could say or argue. Now, we have online this morning to discuss this very interesting but somewhat esoteric topic still. We have Mr. Richard Dennison. He is the Public Relations Officer of the Astronomical Association of Jamaica. We also have online Reverend Richard Beckford. He is a lecturer, and this is at the Jamaica Theological Seminary, and he lectures in the whole matter of theology and Bible. Lecturer in Bible and theology at the Jamaica Theological Seminary, and indeed also he is a minister of religion. I want to welcome Mr. Dennison and Reverend Beckford. Good morning to both of you, sirs.
Good morning.
Good morning, man.
Great having you both. Now, first of all, I'm going to start with you, Mr. Dennison, and I will hasten to say quickly that I am familiar with both of these persons who are our guests this morning. Welcome, Richard. Welcome, Richard. Okay. Now, what I find interesting is that we probably need to start with a definition of what is a UFO. I'm going to pose that one to you, Mr. Dennison. And in a sense, while you're giving us that definition, can you also tell us a little bit about your association, why you'd be interested in a subject like this?
Okay, so to begin with, the association, we're going to start there, is a grouping of persons very, keenly interested in viewing the heavens above us, right? And understanding the stars to varying degrees of interest, because of course, there's a lot of detail that you can get into in taking an appreciation of the heavens. So the AAJ invites all who are welcome, and you can look us up on do a Google search for the Astronomical Association of Jamaica, and you'll find our link there to sign up, where we meet regularly every last Tuesday of the month, now online, but prior to at the physics department at UE, to talk about the heavens, to discuss the latest science and findings, as well as to use our telescopes, because we have various very high quality, powerful equipment to view what's ever in the stars that night. So, and we do host events too, and we're looking to do more in the future. So this is, of course, is open invitation, if I may do my job as a PR officer, to invite all who are interested to do that search and to come and join us and find out what we're all about. We're also doing a giveaway of telescopes, of what are called Galileo scopes, to interested children, as a way of encouraging an interest in in astronomy and science in general. Now, UFO is the original term, actually. That was coined around 1947 to describe any object seen in the sky that's unclear and unidentified. So UFO being unidentified flying object. The new term, however, I should point out, is now called UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena. So they're kind of trying to move away from the stigma of UFO, because the government is now serious about this perceived, potential threat as far as the military is concerned, because of course it could be advanced technology from, rogue or, enemy nations, if you will. So there is a renewed interest to really get to the bottom of this, because it's sort of been in the background for a long time. So That's hopefully explains a little bit of the term there. Yeah.
It's interesting that you said that, Mr. Dennison, that it could be really and truly an enemy object, because some persons, when they hear, maybe they even see us having this conversation right now, and they might be saying, are these really UFOs? You have used a different term, no problem with that. Or is it that it's really some technology from an enemy country, which maybe those in the US can't identify, and they're calling it sightings? Any thoughts on that, sir?
All right, well, to begin with, we have to highlight a limit to human observation. Seeing is believing. Not exactly. In truth, one should say seeing is interpreting through belief, in that when faced with what appears to be inexplicable phenomena, one's beliefs and life experience is brought into play, and the mind, in creating the reality you see, which is what it does every second of your existence, can at times take license and present to you images and sounds that are creatively altered. Call it a temporary and selective insanity, if you will, right? That is employed to cushion the mind from the anxiety of the unknown. People of serious malfunction in this area, well, you know, we call them madman, a mad woman, right? But note that what they see and hear is as real to them as what you see and hear. So to put it in Jamaican vernacular with a twist, duppy know for frightened, in that you are likely to see duppies if you believe in them. As such, human beings can vary widely in their reporting accuracy, which any policeman can tell. Corroboration from multiple independent sources and observational equipment, cameras, radar, recording devices, is essential in narrowing this inherent accuracy gap. So as I mentioned earlier, you know, a gentleman was the first in around 1947 in the USA to report seeing a group of high-speed objects as he was flying his plane that he said moved like saucers skipping on water. So this is where the whole idea of flying saucer and then UFO came into play. Such reported sightings increased after that, and the advent of the Cold War and fears, again, as I mentioned earlier, of Soviet technological advancement at the time, led the US military to launch several investigations as a response to a perceived threat to the homeland. This all eventually led to Project Blue Book, which probably many people have heard of, as the longest running official inquiry, with about 6% of the 12,000 sightings that were recorded falling under the category of unidentified. So what that means is that despite, you know, all their best efforts to, you know, find earthbound or, you know, regular explanations, they couldn't, for at least 6% of those sightings.
Interesting you're saying this, Mr. Dennison, and not to take away from anything that you have said whatsoever. In fact, there's a report here, BBC News, and it's dated 25th June. It does, for example, use the same term you have referenced, unidentified aerial phenomenon. I'll read a little tiny bit of it. The interim report released on Friday that was then said most of the 144 reported cases of the unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, came in the last 2 years after the US Navy put in place a standardized reporting mechanism, and it continues. One of the concerns some people might raise, and I'm going to throw now to the other Richard Beckford, Reverend Richard Beckford. Some persons may argue, listen, we're only hearing about people from the United States making these kinds of statements. We know we may have persons from other jurisdictions, other countries as well saying things, but for the most part, most of this sort of talk is coming from people outside of the United States or within US airspace. Reverend Richard Beckford, sir, as a pastor, as a minister of religion, we know we're almost upon the break, but before we get to that break, can you give us an indication as to how you feel from a church perspective about this? We are a religious media station, radio station. We, however, look at all sorts of issues. How do you feel about this, sir?
Well, thank you. Good morning, Stoke, and to Richard and the guests, and to your viewers and listeners. Historically, Jamaicans, especially from the Jamaican church, have been suspicious of the, of UFOs, but now the terminology, the UAP, have been suspicious because, there is this belief that we are the only ones in the universe,
Reverend Beckford, I'm going to ask you to hold 1 second. We're going to try to get your audio sorted because we're up on a break now, but we're having a challenge hearing you. Please stay with us, listeners. We'll be right back on the morning.
Phoenix Health and Vision Center, 65 Main Street, St. Anne's Bay, near the St. Anne's Bay Health Center. The only full care eye service center in St. Anne.
The time by
Phoenix Health and Vision Center
is
7:15.
People, are you listening? If you choose to remain at home after an evacuation order has been issued, you do so at your own risk. Get out! Get out! Heed the warning!
Slow internet, nah keep again. Switch and get 1 month free on Jamaica's fastest network. Speed on over to Digicel and try our 30-day Prime bundle free for 1 month. Loaded with data, local calls, and text. Wait, it gets better. Plus, get enough more data to enjoy more of the movies, music, and sports you want with your Digicel lifestyle apps. If you're on the go, you can't afford to be slow. Switch to Jamaica's fastest network and keep your number. Visit the store today or message us at Digicel Jamaica on socials for more details. Digicel, better together.
Make I tell you about short-term motor insurance from JNGI. You choose what you need, 30, 60, 90 days policy. No long commitment, full third party. Don't park your car, don't walk, get a shotty. So affordable and it's not per nation market. JNGI shotty. Country party, we have a shotty. Just insure your vehicle and start it. Roll out with a shotty. Shotty, the short-term motor insurance from JN General Insurance. Available only online.
"49 years later and still going strong, Under the Law helps you to know your rights and how the laws of Jamaica can help you defend those rights. The program is brought to you on Mondays by the Bank of Jamaica, building an inclusive economy, and on Tuesdays by the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, providing opportunity, stability, and social protection. Under the Law, Mondays and Tuesdays at 6:20 a.m., 2:55, 6:45, and 9:10 p.m. on Love 101 FM.
The role of the church. What is it? What is it not? Has the role changed since the church was first established some 2,000 years ago? Is the church failing? If so, why and how? Find the answers to these and more questions this Tuesday, July 6th at 10 a.m. on The Rock with host Pastor Harold Steve Blair and guests Bishop Wesley Plummer and Bishop Courtney McLean as they discuss the topic, the role of the church. That's The Rock. Listen every Tuesday at 10 a.m. right here on Love 101 FM, the family station.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marsh. We are in the main watch and we are looking at the topic, the US, Pentagon, and UFOs. And our guests for this segment, Richard Dennison, Public Relations Officer of the Astronomical Association of Jamaica, and Reverend Richard Beckford. He is a Minister of Religion and lecturer in Bible and Theology at the Jamaica Theological Seminary. Good morning again, gentlemen, and of course, listeners, thanks for staying with us. Now, just before the break, Pastor Beckford, you're making a very interesting point. Would you like to continue that thought? Because, of course, you represent church. We know that there are some persons with views that may say that the only life that there is life on planet Earth. Your thoughts, Pastor Beckford?
Yes. Are you hearing me well?
Pastor Beckford, we're having a slight challenge hearing you. Would you like to try that again, sir?
Are you hearing me?
We are hearing you, but there's a little bit of a disturbance in the line. But while we try to look at that, Mr. Dennison, sir, Richard Dennison. What I found it interesting that you have referenced or the name you're giving to the equipment that you're giving away in relation to your association is a Galileo. You name Galileo. And if my recollection of history is accurate, Galileo challenged the then establishment of the church in relation to his view of what the world look like in terms of the relationship between the sun and the earth. Would you like to develop on that a little bit? And if you have any thoughts of your own, as a member of your own association, of how you'd like to engage with the church on a topic such as this.
Right. Well, yes, you're correct. Science and religion have had a tenuous relationship over the years. I will note that as of in recent times, the church has lined up a bit more closely, if you will, with the scientists in terms of being open to certain interpretations of, again, phenomena and things we've witnessed collectively as a human race. Now, my personal thoughts here are interesting. I'll say this. The whole idea of aliens, right, and extraterrestrial life. I mean, the science approach will be to say, look, we now know as a fact that there are many, billions of planets out there in the universe, right? And the mere fact that life can exist on this planet that's in a specific distance from the sun, which we call the habitable zone, because like Goldilocks, in a way, it's not too hot that water and, critical elements evaporate off the planet, and not too cold that we're locked in, an ice cube. Life is able to exist here, and there've been there've been surveys of the near heavens that have found planets in these positions. So the scientific argument, is that, well, it's very likely that life could exist. But then there's a counter argument. We have not found definitive proof of life on other planets. So it's not totally out of the realm of possibility that this is the only planet that for the guide of happenstance that just happens to have all the critical elements together to create life, which is quite interesting that we can have a bag of chemicals, contemplate that it is such that we exist here and have a purpose and a meaning and a reason. Now, religion has played its role in explaining human existence and our purpose in life, and an afterlife, if you will. And this whole question of aliens does challenge that idea. Because if we accept the fact that aliens exist, which is part of the problem going back to the Galileo's time, to accept the fact that the Earth wasn't the center of the universe, that everything didn't revolve around it, because we can empirically prove that that is not true. It sort of diminishes our importance, which again, for some people can be challenging. I don't think that necessarily has to counter the existence of God and, God's purpose here, because of course, you could simply say, well, this is God's way, of putting life on the planet, of making what is here be here, right? So I wouldn't necessarily, in that instance, in my mind, see a divergence between the two views, in the sense that one can be encompassed within the other, right? In terms of science being God's tool, for us to understand the world that He has created. If you want to pose it in those terms.
It's very interesting that you're saying that, Mr. Dennis, because some persons would probably assume that it's either one or the other. You're saying you're not seeing where there has to be a divergence.
Right. There are arguments to and from, but I will say this, that at this point, right, given what we do know as facts, right, because I'll say this, even in the level of in physics, there's a lot that is being discovered now that is inexplicable, that runs very counter what we call quantum mechanics, right, to what we would think, that in terms of particles popping in and out of reality, getting something from nothingness, so on and so forth. I won't dive too deep into that, but for our purposes today, I'll say this, that it's troubling what the government has revealed. They are in some ways admitting that what they have recorded, and as I pointed to before, not just on human observation, but corroborated by equipment and machinery, is objects in the sky that are doing very unusual and inexplicable things that they can't even fathom our competition, being the Russians or the Chinese or whoever, having discovered that. Now, it doesn't mean they haven't. A lot of what we know as current science has been kept secret for many years. So it could be that they have made fundamental breakthroughs. Again, can't rule it out without the facts, but it's safe to say that they, based on their research and knowledge, seem very, open or opening to the idea, and not dismissing it outright, that this could be visitors from outer space. And I'll say this: I have a running joke in the AAJ that our mishandling of the planet has maybe opened up the window for these quote-unquote aliens to start seasoning us with the idea of their existence, for them to step in, and save us, because it's hard to think that we as human beings, right, have all the answers. We don't, and clearly we've not done the best we can with the world, with global warming and such. But who knows? And that's a big question. Who knows? We can't rule out the God aspect of it. We can't rule out the alien aspect of it totally, because again, from a scientist's point of view, without the facts, we cannot make hard statements.
I'll say this personally. I'm of the view that whatever is out there in science, God made it, because at the end of the day, well, I'm speaking personally. I believe that there's a transcendental God who controls everything ultimately. That's my opinion, my view based on what I see in the scripture. But I want to bring back in Reverend Beckford. Reverend Beckford, are you back with us now in terms of your audio, sir? Are you back with us now in terms of your audio, sir? Are you back with us now in terms of your audio, sir? Still having challenges with Reverend Beckford. But I will say this, you can say yes or no, Pastor Beckford. Is it that the Bible, for example, doesn't speak to extraterrestrials or aliens, save and except, based on your interpretation of scripture, the only thing the Bible speaks to which is outside of this world are angels and demons? Am I correct, sir?
Well, it goes back to what Richard said earlier in terms of the observer and the lens that we interpret that which we observe. The biblical authors and the biblical community that they would receive their writings, their lens was a religious lens, coming from Judaism and also coming from early Christianity. And so what would be considered UAP would be angels and demons and maybe fire coming down from heaven. Those were for them the unidentified aerial phenomena at the time, but it was seen through a religious lens at that time. So it is there in the Bible, more so angels and so forth and evil spirits, and even in extra biblical material, those were the objects that were identified, but the authors were not writing a scientific material, even though there may be science within it, but they were writing a religious theological material. And as Richard said earlier, that their purpose was not to conflict with science. Their purpose was to actually put forward a narrative of God and what they believe of God. Now, since the Bible has been written, church fathers have come up with their own theories regarding the earth, regarding the cosmos, that influence how we view the cosmos. That was turned on its head. We heard about Galilee earlier. That was turned on its head by later findings by, for example, Galilee and others. And so, we have to respect that and appreciate that and understand that it's not that the two are in conflict.
But before we wrap today, any final thoughts you want to leave with us, both gentlemen? For example, you raised a very interesting point, which we wouldn't have time to develop on today, Mr. Dennison, in relation to how we are treating with this earth, whether it opens the door for, I'd even go on the limb and say it, an alien invasion. Some people think that's what will happen in the future, and should unite to repel such an invasion. Any thoughts on that, sir?
Well, our own history of, more advanced cultures meeting less advanced cultures. Think of the conquest of the New World, right? Never went well. It was always bad for the conquered. And this is part of the fear we have of aliens, which is played out in the movies, that, they may not be these benevolent entities. They may not have our moral code, our consideration, and as best as we've had it, even we have committed atrocities as a human race against lesser creatures, worse, even animals, right? Yeah.
We are totally out of time, Mr. Dennison. I mean, I just made that comment. I don't necessarily believe it myself. I've heard that thought out there, and as a journalist, I'm raising it. I want to thank both you, Mr. Dennison, and as well as Reverend Beckford for being with us this morning. Sorry your audio had challenges, Reverend Beckford. I want to thank both of you for your thoughts and for your time, and for listeners for being with us. The Morning Watch will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
49 years later and still going strong, Under the Law helps you to know your rights and how the laws of Jamaica can help you defend those rights. The program is brought to you on Mondays by the Bank of Jamaica, building an inclusive economy, and on Tuesdays by the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, providing opportunity, stability, and social protection. Under the Law, Mondays and Tuesdays at 6:20 a.m., 2:55, 6:45, and 9:10 p.m. on Love 101 FM.
JN Auto Loan, helping you on your journey. Roll out and make a statement in your brand new vehicle.
The time by JN will help you find a way is
7:31 on the Son of Love.
Bills to pay and funds to transfer? No problem. I do it all on my time with JN Bank Live Online Banking. It's my simple and secure as that online banking.
Phone credit need a top up? No problem. I do it with JN Bank Live Online Banking.
It's quick and easy with just a few clicks. JN Bank Live, online banking that goes where you go. Sign up today. Visit jnbank.com. JN Bank will help you find a way.
Wait, what you doing here? You come to sort out a license. That little thing me I try start. But them no want help me.
That's not right. You talk to the manager?
Yes, same too busy. But as a money man walk in, them run down help him.
Everybody have the right to fair and just treatment. That's how the Constitution go. Come, we're going down there. And this time I have to help you and treat you with respect.
Everybody have rights. Brought to you by the National Family Planning Board and the Office of the Public Defender.
The role of the church. What is it? What is it not? Has the role changed since the church was first established some 2,000 years ago? Is the church failing? If so, why and how? Find the answers to these and more questions this Tuesday, July 6th at 10 a.m. on The Rock with host Pastor Harold Steve Blair and guests Bishop Wesley Plummer and Bishop Courtney McLean as they discuss the topic, the role of the church. That's The Rock. Listen every Tuesday at 10 a.m. right here on Love 101 FM, the family station.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. Let's take a look at the newspaper, see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. And we have here on the front page of the Daily Observer, Prime Minister Boris Johnson says UK must live with coronavirus. More of that at page 32 of the Daily Observer. And for those of you who may not have seen the details in relation to what Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been saying, he did indicate that July the 19th this year, the United Kingdom will reopen in terms of how it treats the novel coronavirus, and all legal restrictions will be lifted. All restrictions will be lifted, and things such as wearing a face covering in relation to your nose and mouth will be voluntary, not mandatory. A very interesting development there in the United Kingdom. We have also on the front page of the Daily Observer, fatal twist. And this is a very disturbing story, listeners, because it has a photograph here of a gentleman, Aaron Morgan. I read a little bit of it. Aaron Morgan, who was desperate to save his own life early yesterday morning, called the police to come to his rescue after allegedly being attacked with a knife in a domestic dispute. But a twist of events would lead to a 35-year-old Tashikia McLeod, the mother of his 4-year-old son, being shot and killed by the police, leaving him with self-blame and regret. Our deepest condolences to Mr. Morgan. More of that at page 4 of the Daily Observer. We also have on the front page of the Gleaner, $800 million flood bill. That story by Nadine Wilson Harris, senior staff reporter of the Gleaner. And we have reference as well to the story in relation to Aaron Morgan, battered man's plea, and it reports here in terms of the caption below the photograph of Mr. Morgan. Aaron Morgan mourns the police shooting death of his baby mother, Tashika McLeod, in Kingston on Monday. and he holds up a picture, or he holds up a phone, sorry, with a picture of a female there. We assume it is perhaps of the same Miss McCloy. Condolences again to you, Mr. Morgan. Condolences to you again. Well, coming up next, we'll read for you some of the feedback from our Facebook and question. Well, actually, our social media question, which we have on in relation to Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp, which is, which would you be more comfortable with? There being extraterrestrial life, or you flying in a pilotless plane? If you haven't done so yet, leave a comment on our Facebook or YouTube, Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, or WhatsApp your comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
Have some issues and concerns in your community that you wish could be attended to now? Want a platform to voice those concerns? This could be the place for you. Send your 30-second voice notes describing your issue to 876-997-3125. That's 876-997-3125. Be sure to type a voice for hope before sending the voice note. Then listen on Tuesday at 9:45 a.m. for a voice for hope. Share the concerns you have seen. You know that street light that has not been working for a long time, or your community has not had water for 2 weeks now? Yes, here is somewhere you can share it. And maybe, just maybe, we can get some love on your situation. Remember now, send a 30-second voice note describing your issue and type a voice for hope before sending your voice note to 876-997-3125. A voice for hope. It's a problem, and we need a solution now. Love 101 FM, the family station, bringing a voice to your situation.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. Now, we are in the second watch, and just recently on the Morning Watch, of course, we tried to deal with all of the cutting edge issues, none barred from the Morning Watch. We have driverless cars. We had a segment on that. Now, today we are looking at the whole matter of, will there be a future where commercial planes are flown without pilots? And are pilotless airplanes closer to us than we think? Is that future nearer than we think? What's the difference between autopilot and a pilotless plane? What would be the idea behind commercial planes? Yes, a plane it takes to go to England, North America, another Caribbean island, etc., 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 having no pilot in the cockpit. That's if there's a cockpit. And how might this even be possible? Well, we have online today to discuss this Tyrone Edwards. He is an IT expert, and I would even say has become our regular technology specialist here on the Morning Watch, here at Love 101 FM. And we also have online this morning Captain Jonathan Tucker, an airline pilot. Good morning, Mr. Edwards. Good morning, Captain. How are you both?
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning, Mr. Marshall, and good morning to your listeners.
These sorts of topics seem strange to many, but they are not that strange. In fact, they are not strange at all, I would say. I'm seeing a recent article here in CNN. The question posed in the article on the Business Traveler, are we one step closer to pilotless commercial jets? And this story is from 2020. So it's a little bit dated in terms of its publication, but the topic is not dated because we're in 2021 now, and we still have many pilots, such as Captain Tucker, doing their regular duties, we presume. However, we know that there's a future coming where we're having these kinds of conversations. In fact, I've seen even more recent publications, recent reference, where this conversation is ongoing. And I'm going to throw this one firstly to you, Captain Jonathan Tucker. We know we have so the pilot will, for example, carry the plane along on the runway in terms of piloting it there. He pilots the lift, or she pilots the lift off into the air. And then at some point when you're in the air, you use your various computer apparatus to make sure the plane flies to where it is supposed to go. But it's really all programmed. And you are then in charge of the descent and hitting the runway to park the vehicle, park the plane, as it were. You can look at my terms and tell me if these are the terms you use, Captain. And we all get off the plane and we're on our merry way. What about a pilotless plane, however, Captain Tucker, where I've seen and read where the computer program itself would taxi the plane on the runway, do the liftoff into the air, and do the descent at the next destination. Captain, I'm getting a little bit nervous. Take us through this, please.
Well, you're mostly correct in what you've said so far. I'm going to touch on a few things. A lot of where we are right now and what we currently use in our daily operations is really just where the technology is currently at. As Tyrone, he's an IT guy, he'd be able to corroborate this. What we do primarily right now is as the pilots, we pretty much are the ones to program our flight routes, and pretty much once the program is done, or programming is done at the gate, we taxi out, we take off, and pretty much enable the automation, which is our autopilot. At that point, the aircraft is able to fly laterally and vertically, pretty much in the way that we programmed it. But we can always intercede. We can always change the course of action. We are the artificial intelligence at that point. We are the brain of the machine. And people usually have a misconception that the pilot does just push a button. Well, yes, we do. We push a few buttons, but this is normally where, we have experience and we have a thought process, and we kind of sense when things aren't right and we change the course of things. So are we there yet? The technology is there. So with the reference of the aircraft that took off in December, capable of taxiing out, taking off visually, as though let's say the Tesla would drive by itself using a visual reference system. The aircraft is capable of that now. What most of the aircraft we use nowadays are not really capable of that. They would have to be retrofitted with that. This one was designed basically with that capability, or as a recent production, that was added to it very recently after it was produced. So a lot of other aircraft would have to be really they would have to design something to retrofit to those aircraft. So what we use now, like I say, is a limit, is the limit of the technology that we had at the time is what we're still using. It is great technology, mind you. These aircraft can take off, in all kinds of conditions. They can land by themselves, what we call Category 3 landings. So the pilot just has to pretty much taxi the aircraft off the runway. Our aircraft are capable of that right now.
We're upon this, so the only reason why I'm stopping is because we're upon that break. But we're going to bring you in as well, Mr. Edwards, just after the break. Stay with us, listeners. Very interesting. Don't go anywhere. We're taking a break right now.
Time love is 7:45.
I always do my best to stay in control of my expenses. So with Flow, I added my mobile to my home internet service and elevated my savings. I get 50% off my mobile plan each month. Yeah, man, I get a simple, predictable mobile bill of $1,600 plus GCT and never sign a contract nor made a deposit. And you can get this too. Add your mobile to your Flow home internet for elevated savings of 50% off your mobile plan each month. Visit the Flow store or discoverflow.co to sign up today.
Look out for the poor. Share a meal. Help a child with a textbook, whatever you can. If you help the poor, you are lending to the Lord, says Proverbs 19, verse 17. Let's work together to make Jamaica a gentler, kinder society. A message from the Church of the Open Bible, 12 Washington Boulevard. Join in our worship service Sundays at 8 a.m. right here on Love 101.
Me a forward! Is where you going? What you mean? Me get my vaccine so me can touch the road now. Touch road? You know your ears hard. The health people said this is only the first dose and we need 2 doses to be fully protected. Eh? What you mean? What me mean? We're waiting for the second dose, Mr. Sir. So you try turn your yard and go and follow the protocols. Wear your mask, wash your hand, and keep your distance from other people. Get vaccinated, get back to life. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. We are in the second watch, and we are looking at a future where commercial planes are flown without pilots. And our guests for this segment, we have Captain Jonathan Tucker. He's an airline pilot, and we also have Tyrone Edwards, an IT information technology specialist. Just before the break, Captain Tucker, you were taking us through some of the very important bits of information there in relation to what a pilot does now and what the technology can do now. However, in relation to, well, Captain Tucker, let me ask you this. About when in the future do you see a pilotless plane being the norm, if that is even conceivable?
I would say that the technology has to get us to a point where collectively we have a belief that it is without flaw. We still want to believe that people have the ability to be close to perfect in their behaviors and operations when it comes to tasks. And with certain things like checklists and stuff like that, we can pretty much maintain a 99.99% safe operation.
But this will implicate us clearly for a job such as yours, Captain, but perhaps that's another discussion which we can touch on during this conversation. But I want to bring in Mr. Edwards, IT expert, IT specialist, sir, Mr. Edwards.
Yes, sir.
We have had conversations ad nausea on this program on artificial intelligence, AI. Do you think that when it comes to a pilotless commercial plane, that we're just going a little bit too far? Are we too close to the edge here? Don't we at least need some human interaction in case there's some kind of fault, electronically or digitally? What's your view on a pilotless commercial plane?
Well, as Captain Tucker said, that the technology exists to allow the planes to operate without the direct intervention of the pilot. And he also highlighted a very...
Can I stop you there 1 second, Mr. Edwards? Look, my phone can operate without my interacting with it, yes? But the phone can fail. My digital watch, when I had one that is, could operate without my interacting with it, but it can say they might need a battery or something. Let's go now to the plane. Shouldn't you at least have one pilot somewhere in that cockpit who can take over if something goes wrong, sir?
And that is the dilemma. We want to ensure that someone is maintaining accountability. The technology is there, but would you feel comfortable putting your family member on a tube, knowing that there is a solid door with a bunch of electronics, and you wave them off and you're like, bye, and they're sitting there going through weather, going through mountainous areas, flying over rough terrain? I mean, would you want to put your family member on board? If the technology has reached a point where we're so comfortable saying absolutely, then it's going to happen. And that's the only time it's going to happen. The technology is there, but do we have the ability to resign our fears to an artificial intelligence structure?
And I would say that fears are learned, right? So based on the past, in terms of a failure of airplanes, this is one of the reasons there is a fear of being in a plane in the first place, where you have given over all control to the pilots, hoping that they will be operating the plane in the safest possible way. Now,
you said the pilots are giving all control over to the technology.
Yes. So that's the current premise that we work on, that we feel comfortable knowing that this vehicle is being controlled by pilots, somebody who we can put the responsibility on, right? If there is any failure. As the technology has improved, we see where the technology has been taking over much of the activities that the pilot would normally do. So I can say that the pilot is really involved during the takeoff operations and during landing. But in terms of landing the airplane, the technology had improved to assist the pilot immensely when it comes down to landing in situations where visibility are extremely low. Once the pilot has entered their route that they're going to take and they get the plane in the air, then they can give over control to autopilot. And the plane has millions of sensors that keep the pilot informed so that the pilot can intervene if something is going abnormal. So for pilotless planes, it would mean that we as the public have gotten to the point where we can accept that we can give all accountability over what happens with that plane over to the technology and the company who owns that plane or the technology that is guiding the plane. So like the 737 MAX, where those accidents took place because of an error in the software, right? Who was held accountable for that particular fault? So when it comes on to pilotless planes, we're not going to get there until the confidence can be assured that the technology will not fail. As Captain Tucker said, 99.99%, right? And so we would say, as a safeguard, maybe now that you have two pilots in the plane, with the security or assurity that at least there is one human who will be able to intervene if the technology fails, then we would be more accepting of allowing the plane to work autonomously to a point. So you would have that captain there in the cockpit to monitor the system that is in control of that airplane.
You know,
So,
I'm sorry. Finish your point, Mr. Edwards.
So we are very close to being able to say we will expect that we're going to have more planes that are going to be outfitted with the technology that allow for the plane to take off once its route has been programmed. There are the sensors are already allow for the plane to keep a reading of every minute thing that is happening. And so once we feel comfortable, then we will see changes. Right now, we're not going to see people accepting it because for one thing, maybe they don't have the information to give them the confidence that, but wait, so maybe 80% of the flight is already being done by the plane's software, and the pilot intervenes at takeoff and landing. Okay, all right, I think I can see that future now where I will be comfortable going on a plane that will take off by itself and land by itself, but only if I know there is a fail-safe, and that pilot being there is that fail-safe.
You know, so many things pop up here. For example, what will happen to pilot training? Will things change there? What about the terms of engagement of pilots? Will pilots be getting the same rank? They're, for the most part, considered to be among the higher paid persons out there in terms of professions. Another thing that comes up is illegal. In fact, the article references it from the CNN article that I referred to earlier. There is a 4-eye rule in terms of how the cockpit is to be operated. Current air traffic laws, I'm quoting here, current air traffic laws in much of the world require 4-eye rule in the cockpit. This means two pilots must be present at all times. If one requires a break, the other must be ready to step in and take their place. So before we wrap, Captain Tucker, any comments here? Because you have the legal regime or the rules that govern how a cockpit should be run, literally, and then you have so many other variables, such as, will being a pilot be as prestigious an occupation anymore as it currently still is, viewed or seen? We know we have challenges. We know Caribbean Airlines is cutting or wants to cut some of its pilots, and it's been reported that some pilots are willing to take a pay cut, etc., etc. There are those conversations. But any comments before we wrap, Captain? Because this is a whole lot to swallow.
I think that there will always be some prestige to operating something that shouldn't really be up there. Flying is always one of those things where you're like, man, this thing, it shouldn't be up here, but it's up here. So to be on top of that is always an awesome thing. But just to wrap up, the federal, the laws, the governing air laws that put these things into place are really, those institutions are really the ones that set those things, like the 4-eye rule and stuff like that. So the reason they do that is for redundancy, safety, of course. So is that going to change anytime soon? Maybe not in my career lifetime, because it is one of those things that.
We're gonna to stop there only because of time. We're totally out of time. I want to thank both of the gentlemen. There's so much more to say, but I want to thank you, Captain Tucker, as well as Mr. Edwards, for being with us in this Morning Watch. Thank you for your time and for your contribution. Thank you, listeners, for being with us. Thank you, listeners, for being with us. Join us again tomorrow with other topical and controversial issues. And to get copies of the program, call our production department at 876-968-95967. This has been the Morning Watch. Download our Love 101 app and stay connected to us. The #1 station in Jamaica. Thanks to our producer, Country Gale, and to our guests. I am Stokely Marshall, handing it back to Love in the Morning with Siobhan Blair.
And the Morning Watch today was brought to you by Home and Things, your construction finishes superstore. It is approaching 8:01, listeners, and it's time